Aces wild. That's the nothing personal word of the day for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. I'm referring not to the Las Vegas Aces, but instead to pitching aces, top of the rotation guys, people who everyone spends tons of time debating and talking about and giving you lists and trying to predict who are the best pitchers. We've got the top 100 pitchers, top 100 prospects. We've got aces of every team, producers everywhere, content creators everywhere are big into lists. I like my movie list, an occasional winners or losers list. The aces list is something that I want to bring to your attention today because baseball is a really hard sport. And finding executives who can put teams together who are better than the average fan or the average scout or player development person, it's really hard to do. And this is not me making any sort of case that I was better at it than anybody else. Was not. Although I had great continuity in my GMs, way better than in managers. One of the stories, and I want to bring it back so for this part of the show, you keep it in your mind, which is what makes somebody better is not telling me to sign Shohei Ohtani. What makes someone better is telling me to start Javier Assad if you're the Cubs. What makes someone better is telling me that, hey, Lopez, he is going to perform this year. We are going to put him in the rotation and keep him there. What makes someone better is saying, let's take on Chris Sale. Let's extend him before the season even starts because he's going to be who he was way back, not who he's been recently. That sort of value added is the way you will get ahead in your career. It's the way you'll make more money. It's the way you'll get promoted. It's the way you'll get poached by other businesses, other teams. No supervisor wants to hear what they know or what they think everybody else knows. They want to hear what you know that they didn't think of and they think that no one else has thought of either. Chris Sale is just a great example for Anthopoulos to go to Terry McGurk and the people at Liberty as they're getting ready to sell the team and say, hey, give me a piece, man. Just a little stipple of something. Chris Sale has 20 straight 4-8-69. Say that 10 times. Well, not that part. Say Chris Sale has 20 straight scoreless innings. Sale, 20 straight scoreless innings for the Braves. He pitched another amazing game last night. Last year, his ERA was in the 4s. He was inconsistent at best. He was hurt for 3 years before that. His last 5 starts, he's basically been perfect. Not perfect like Darvish perfect, but damn close. Don't forget that he was traded to the Braves. Do you remember that trade? And then he was signed. And I probably did an episode of Nothing Personal where I questioned why the Braves would extend a player they haven't lived with. And granted, it's still the early part of mid or the late part of early. And maybe this whole discussion telling you and giving flowers to Seth Lugo and Suarez, and we talked yesterday about Imanaga. Maybe I'm wrong to point out all the pitchers who a month and a half, 2 months into the season have earned run averages below 2.0. Maybe you've got a totally different view, which is the view of regression. The view of regression is the very thing that gets me through the day. It's the very thing that stops me from reacting to things that look out of place, either negatively or positively. Both regression and standard deviation are concepts that have stood the test of time, that are mathematically provable and pure. The way certain players are playing right now, you have to imagine it won't continue. The question is, when does that happen? It's my theory of roulette and why, if you're the richest person in the world, you will make money on roulette every single time. You've just got to walk into the casino with millions of dollars. If you do that and you're only trying to win 50 grand, I promise you, you will win 50 grand no matter what. You will win your unit. You just have to have the money to withstand the improbable but possible likelihood of 30 blacks in a row. Because once you start red, you got to stay red. Once you start black, you got to stay black. And you got to double your bet every time to win back the original unit. And you have to have the discipline that if it hits red the first time, you take your win and you leave. In theory, you could do it every day. And I didn't get that off a TikTok video. How to beat Vegas. Man, my algorithm is horrific on TikTok. I watched one video about someone who is sick with cancer. And now that's all I'm getting in my TikTok is early signs of this cancer, symptoms you may have missed of that one, which for someone like me is how you don't sleep. You can get into the TikTok rabbit hole, and before you know it, it's been 4 hours, and you watched a video, and then boom, you've got 1,000 of them. Maybe one day one of you will teach me how to undo my algorithm. That would be good. So I was thinking about aces, and I was watching Chris Sale. I was watching Clay Holmes blow the save last night. Coke and I were on the phone preparing for the show today, and we were talking about Holmes and his 0.00 Blutarski ERA. And I said, as executives, we used to not like that, and we would speak to our manager. This was right before the days of telling your manager what to do. And I would want, and this is going to make me sound insane to the membrane, but hear me out. This is sort of like give every pitcher in the minor leagues Tommy John. If you are in the middle of May and your closer has a 0.00 with not one blown save, I want to take him out of the closer position, and I want him to give up runs in a non-save situation, because I don't know much, but I do know that nobody's ending the season with a 0.00. Therefore, Clay Holmes is going to give it up, and I'd rather not lose a game when he does. We get off the phone, we're working on the show, and if you don't know what happened, unless you're in Seattle, in which case you for sure know what happened, or unless you're in New York, where you likely know what happened, unless you're solely focused on the Rangers and Pot Van sucking. Is that something? Maybe Sarah knows that, but Coca probably not. I don't know, but if I go to a Rangers game this series, I'm going to be yelling Pot Van sucks, even if I'm on my own. So you would have focused on the fact that Holmes gave up 4 runs in the 9th, and the Mariners came back to beat the Yankees. And after a game like that, our owner would call and say, I told you, we're giving up runs. We're doomed. It's normal. That's regression. That's probability. It seems unlikely to me that Seth Lugo will end the season with an ERA below 2, doesn't it? What are the chances? Just as unlikely as Lopez with the Braves ending at below 2, just as unlikely as Sale ending the season below 2. So how do we try to fix this during the course of a season as a front office? Do you even take this into account? And my answer is we would talk about it all the time, and we were stumped. We'd bring in our analytics department. We'd bring in our pitching coach. And we would spend as much time talking about players who are overperforming as players who are underperforming. When you've got a player underperforming his baseball card, that's a great expression that owners use. I think Steve Cohen used it recently. We expect our guys to play to their baseball card. He's not wrong. We do sit around and say that. The question is, when you give up on the fact that this is going to be a bad baseball card year, a bad player who had an anomaly good year or good 2 years, but the player is who he is now, or is he not? And he is who he was then. So we'd bring in pitching coach and we'd say, what are you seeing? We'd have the video guy. We'd do side-by-sides year over year when a pitcher was getting lit up and all of a sudden he's lights out. Oh, look at that. That leg kick's a little higher. We worked on that. Oh, his pitch mix And we get all these reports. He's going 66% breaking balls, and it used to be 58%. We'd have all of these people, mostly men, getting paid under 50 grand, doing all these different reports, who would all be replaced in 2 seconds flat by people making even fewer dollars, because the feeling is if you get into a team, you can make it to the top of the team, and you may be right. So we'd look at these reports, and I remember so well saying to our GM, "What?" And because I'm used to getting reports when you're running a business, you can see what drove revenue, you can see where expenses. Coke, are you hearing that ding? There's dings in my ear. I don't know if you're hearing that. And if you are, that is not ideal. Okay, you're not. Good, because it's in my ear. That's another notification. We're going to have to find a way. I updated my computer. Side note, maybe this only happens to people of my generation, of my age, but I updated my computer and now everything's screwed up. Apple is sending me certain text messages on 10 different devices. IT alert. Totally lost my train of thought. Oh, aces. We were talking about getting reports, and we were looking at pitchers, and we were trying to decide when we were going to trade a pitcher, trying to decide because we always want to trade people at the high instead of trading them at the low. And so when you've got overperformance, that would be a great time to trade someone. And if your team's out of it and a player's overperforming, a bullpen arm or a starting pitcher, you move them. And we'd have all these departments coming to us saying, no, here's the reason why he's doing what he's doing, and we think this is sustainable. It's rarely sustainable. Seth Lugo is a journeyman pitcher who's pitching like an ace. The Royals happen to be in the race. They are not going to trade him, but the difference between the organization is this is the time exactly you trade him. They gave him that 3-year deal. He is performing 10 levels above the amount he's getting paid. Anybody with money is going to want to take him. And if you want to make your team better over the long run, this is the time you move Seth Lugo, as opposed to the Braves. When you've got someone performing that way, and that's the biggest difference between big market and small market, large revenue, small revenue, you're not going to trade Lopez, even though he's doing something he hasn't done, like starting games since 18 and 19. Even though you've got Sale pitching it a way that you didn't dream he'd pitch, you're not going to move them now because you don't need to. So what was in my head as we were preparing for this, and I was thinking about all these pitchers with the sub-2 ERA and thinking about the fact that they are big market teams and a few small market teams. Baseball has got to figure this out. And what they're trying to convince you is that they're figuring it out by talking about nationalizing TV revenue. That's a big tag word right now, which is the same as increasing revenue sharing. Well, it's not going to happen. You've heard me talk about it on the air before. No matter how much the commissioner wants the rights to all 30 teams, he's not going to get those rights, not for 20 years, and that's at best. The cable deals, the Dodgers goes out to 2038, but there'll always be 8 teams that block a vote to nationalize and basically socialize all revenues. So therefore, in order to win with these low revenue teams, you got to be smart. And with aces as wild as they are right now, we are going to find out quite a bit about how teams are operated. The Yankees got great news yesterday. Did you read that? The Yankees and Mets are funny. The way they announce things, the way what counts as big news for one team does not count as for the other. It must, being the Mets is like being the Clippers. It must infuriate Cone the way it infuriates Ballmer. And there is nothing you can do. It's like being Joe Tsai versus Jimmy Dolan. You're the other team. There can be some fun with the other team. Every once in a while, doing stuff with the other team can even feel good. But it is only the very rare occasion that the other team becomes the main team. Even if you pretend it's going to happen, mostly it doesn't. So the Yankees wanted to let you know that Gerrit Cole is taking another step in his recovery. He's facing hitters Yeah. Do you know what the first step of facing hitters is? You put a guy while he's throwing a bullpen standing there with a bat and say, don't swing it, Jakey boy. That's the first step. Then you face hitters and you say, hey, swing it. And you've got your pitcher behind a screen because you don't want him to get clocked. That's another way to face hitters. Then you can face hitters in a sim game. That's another way. You pick a bunch of minor league scrubbos, make your ace feel better because he's got great stuff. He's getting out your AA guy who's never going to make it anywhere no matter what. But ooh, does he look good? And we're going to announce it. So many tricks in the trade. It's so many. Aaron Boone said, we just want to continue the process, continue to stack good days. It's another step along the way of getting out there on the bump and facing hitters. And he's referring to bullpens. Bullpens are when a pitcher goes out and there's no hitters that he's facing. There's no one standing there. There's only a catcher, the pitching coach. The GM will go down, eyewash. The president will go down once in a while, total eyewash. The owner, triple eyewash. Oh, Cole looks ready. Yeah. It's like making your team from spring training bullpens. All the news media goes there the first day of spring training. Side note, Coke, I love this. They get footage of the early bullpens in spring training. Oh, look at that new acquisition. He looks fire. Meanwhile, we're upstairs, or we come down to look at a few of the bullpens just so we can say that we're working. Meaningless. I want to know after the bullpen, if my injured player, how do you feel? That's the report. The report is Cole was feeling good. So we're going to keep going down the progression. The Mets, of course, are on the other side. They decided we're not going to keep going with our injured ace, Senga. I don't know what show we did. I think it was this week, I assume, where we talked about Senga's mechanics and how he wasn't going to do anything until his mechanics were right. What day was that, Coca? Could have been any day. Every day but Sunday. So the Mets then announced Senga has suffered a setback. And I said, oh, obviously he doesn't feel good about his mechanics again, which is total horse hockey. No. The Mets said he now has triceps tightness. Uh-oh. Do you know what triceps tightness is in a pitcher? You know how sometimes we'll say he's got forearm tightness, or sometimes he's got forearm inflammation. Sometimes we say soreness in the triceps. Sometimes we say tightness in the triceps. Sometimes we say back, shoulder. Do you know that if you have triceps tightness, you know where your triceps is, right? It's on the back. I've got this. Look at that triceps. Ooh, God, it's basically bursting through my blazer right now. When you extend your arm out, you know, when you spin a ball the way I'm doing, if you're watching this on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, when you spin, you can feel on your ulnar collateral ligament on the joint. That's what Tommy John is. So many spins. It just blows out the torque on your arm. All these different splitters. I can't hold. I wish I had a ball with me. I can't even throw a splitter. Oh, maybe. That's a splitter of my dust rag where you can hold it in between your fingers if you're watching this and then release it like that. That's what a splitter is. Ooh, I'm doing grips now. I don't know why I'm doing that. I can do a change up. That's a circle change. I don't know if I'm showing that to the camera, where you put your finger and your pointer and your thumb together, and then you put 3 fingers over the ball. You release it like a fastball motion, but it comes out way slowly versus the 2-seamer, which is 2 fingers over your dust doodaddy. Why are we doing pitches? Oh, we're talking about triceps soreness. Carlos Mendoza said, no, not mechanics. It's now soreness, but we're not concerned. The doctors evaluated it, and we expect Senga will be able to throw again today. And once he throws again, we'd like him to get a bullpen session in by the end of the week. Great. The triceps soreness happened when Senga was only doing long toss. Not great. When we have a pitcher who has soreness or any sort of pain when they're doing the long toss, which is when you start at 60 feet, go to 90 feet, go to 120 feet, You have to always go back down a level. So pitchers start with, they threw it 30 feet, 60 feet, 90 feet, 120 feet. Then they were on the bullpen, on the mound, first flat ground, then mound, then hitter, then sim game, then rehab game, then big league game. It's an entire process. Oh, Canada. That song is in my mind because it was on an episode of Shameless. I started watching Shameless last night, Coca. And maybe the second episode of the whole series, William H. Macy, Frank Gallagher ends up in Toronto and everybody's singing Oh, Canada. And I had flashbacks to my days in Montreal. 2 anthems a game, even when you're on the road. Anyway, can we talk about David Fletcher, please? This story came out yesterday, and I needed to give it its full weight in gold. I'm not taking a victory lap for the fact that the investigation to Shohei Ohtani and Ippei Mizuhara is not going to be able to end all that quickly. There is too much at stake. I've been on record telling you that it is highly unlikely that the single bullet theory is in effect here. And then word came out that David Fletcher, a former Angels infielder, a teammate of Shohei Ohtani, was placing bets through the same bookmaker that Ippei was using. I'm trying to imagine a scenario where a translator is doing business with another player, yet the player who is being translated for is clueless. Now, of course, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. I don't want Ohtani to be involved. Don't misunderstand me. I want this thing to be done. I want baseball to come out and say, we've investigated. There's nothing to see here. Ohtani did nothing. He knew nothing. He saw nothing. I know nothing. What a nightmare that now a teammate was doing the same thing. ESPN's Tisha Thompson has a whole report. It's a whole report. Good news. You're allowed to gamble on other sports if you're a baseball player, but you just can't gamble on baseball. But don't get me wrong. The next word that will come out in the investigation, because MLB decided, oh, crikeys, we now have to investigate David Fletcher. And you can't close the Ohtani investigation with the Fletcher investigation still open, because what if Fletcher tells you during the investigation, hey, man, Ippei and I barely knew each other. I did everything through Shohei. Not saying he's going to say it. But what if he does? Samson and Coca Law have no choice but to do a full investigation of Fletcher now before we rule on Ohtani. And then we got to wait to make sure we get everybody who dealt with this legal bookmaker, because that's a violation. You can be suspended and fined. It's commissioner's discretion. You can't gamble with illegal bookmakers. It's right there in Spanish, Japanese, English, French, Latin, Portuguese, Swahili, every language you can think of, wherever you're from, whatever you're doing, baseball players know you don't bet on baseball and you don't use a bookie. Now, before the amazing progress of all the apps and all the legal betting in all these states, did we know that our players would bet? Yeah, we did. Just like we knew our players were doing steroids. Should we have done more? Yeah. What more would you have done? Tell me what you do when the players are not at the ballpark. Tell me. I used to hate being blamed, Coca. Hated it. When our players would get in trouble off the field. Josh Hamilton notwithstanding, because for someone like him, you give a 24-hour bodyguard to. I can't stand that people said the same thing to me about Jose. Oh, why didn't you have someone watching him? This was bound to happen. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what was in my mind. Bound to happen. When players leave the stadium, it's like when you leave your work. Would you like a representative of Meadowlark following you around, Coca? Everything you were doing? Hey, we're just making sure you're not doing anything nefarious, lascivious, prurient, or in any way that will give you pleasure. Don't want to violate any of them rules now, do we? What are we supposed to do? But when it's time to investigate, we're going to find out what you did. MLB has to use the full faith and credit of its DOI. They've got to use law enforcement. They got to figure out everything that's going on with the Bauer guy and the whole FBI investigation, because they need to make sure they stay clean and they stay full of integrity. It's an absolute trauma-inducing nightmare that Fletcher, who's now AAA, by the way, not even for the Angels, that he bet this way stupidly, not because he may have violated or didn't violate a rule, even though when you bet with a bookie, you did. The fact that it's out there, now they've got to investigate it. And every day they spend investigating is a day longer. They cannot close the Ohtani case. And every day they can't close the Ohtani case is a day more than they want with that as the story. Of course, Ohtani's been great. He doesn't care about the distraction. But that's not how the commissioner thinks. That's not how executives think. We view when there's a distraction to us, it's a distraction to you. Wait to see when I tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, great. We will revisit wait to seize. David Fletcher, in theory, should be only getting a fine for what he did, if it turns out that he did what allegedly he did. I think baseball is going to be a little tougher on Mr. Fletcher because he's not even in the big leagues. He's a AAA. And wouldn't this be good to let players know, hey, my name is Rob Manfred. I can only tell you that if I catch you, I ain't going to be light. Bring your ass into my office. I can picture Anthony Edwards saying it just that way. In walks David Fletcher. He gets investigated. Here's my wait to see. David Fletcher will get suspended by Major League Baseball. Suspended, not just fined. Before we go to break, there's so many. I want to thank all of the listeners. I have, the respect I have for the audience. I get a bunch of requests at davidsamsonpodcast.com. I get a bunch of people who slide into my DMs. Not exactly the target of sliding that I had always dreamt of or thought of. Once in a while, I can respond, not all the time. Someone sent something to me, and I thought to myself, I'm going to read this. This is a loyal listener who's been there for years. Hi, David. I just wanted to remind you that tomorrow, meaning today, Tuesday, the 21st, is school budget voting day in New York. If you could please take 30 seconds on tomorrow's show, that voting for our children's future is very important. I'm sure you don't remember, but I'm a blank at a school, and I take this very seriously. Thanks again, David. Well, there's 30 seconds. I couldn't agree more. Voting matters. School budgets matter. This is a big deal if the budgets don't pass. And I know about this because I happen to know some teachers in New York. Programs will be cut for your kids. All right, we come back. We're going to review a Mark Wahlberg movie called Arthur the King. And then I'm going to answer one of your questions about a lawsuit that's going on with Fanatics that is fascinating to me and will be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson. We're here with you every day, 8 a.m. live on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe. We're also on DraftKings Network at 10 o'clock, except on federal holidays. We will not have a show this coming Monday. It's a holiday. That's the new DraftKings Meadowlark way. Holidays. I don't like taking days off. I guess in theory we could still do a show, but then I'd be asking Coca, who would 100%, and Sarah, who would 100%. We'll wait and see how we're feeling. Although Monday shows, I love them. There's so much to cover. So thank you for everything you're doing. A couple people called me about the tour. We will be in St. Louis on June 25th and Chicago on July 1st. Meet and greets are available. A few of you had a problem on the City Winery website. Make sure you reach out to me on davidsamsonpodcast.com if you have, or on Twitter at David P. Samson. Hopefully I'll see the DM. Or for those of you who have my cell, you have my cell. Our Our promoter was told that everything's fine. I guess we'll wait to see. I watched a movie the other day called Arthur the King with Mark Wahlberg. I've admitted to you in the past, I'm not a big dog guy. I don't like hair everywhere. I don't like the mess. I don't like cleaning up crap, the thought of it. I don't like people who have accidents. I guess I would put my dog in a diaper. I don't like the possibility that the thing never would grow up and learn to talk the way kids do, or learn to be toilet trained the way kids do in theory. The thought of taking a stray dog and all of a sudden adopting it, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Don't get after me, PETA. I'm just saying it's my preference, which I'm totally allowed my preference. And live and let live. If you love dogs, I love it. I love you for loving them. You want to save a dog? I love you for wanting to save a dog. You want a spade, neuter, not. Bob Barker, I'm not. Do as you wish. Arthur the King is about a true story about a guy played by Mark Wahlberg who does these really cool endurance races. Really cool. The kind of endurance races that, like the Barkley marathons, the kind that I would never do because I'm too scared to be in the night. Although this is with the team, so you're not alone. There's kayaking, there's running with your kayak. What's that called when you, oh God, my camp counselors are going to hate me. There's a word when you carry, portage. Yes. Did you have that one at the tip of your tongue, Coca? Do you know what portage is by chance? I believe portaging a canoe is when you carry it over land because you have to get from one body of water to the next. But in any case, this movie is about these adventure endurance racers who somehow adopt a dog and want to win this race so badly. And the question is, do you get the dog? Do you not get the dog? Is the dog drowning? Is the dog not drowning? Do you leave the dog? If it costs you the race, do you find and save the dog? When you're tired and grumpy and angry and thirsty, and then you finish with the dog and it becomes a thing. I was inspired not to go get a dog or not to love dogs, not to stop caring about dog hair and dog feces. I was inspired. I wasn't inspired to sign up for that race. I was inspired. It's called Arthur the King. If you're into that sort of thing, watch the movie. It's not a waste of your time. If you're not, pass. I got other ones to allocate your time instead. Arthur the King. Nothing personal pick of the day. Did you see how well Carl Weathers pitched yesterday? Did you see 4.869? Did you see how well Ryan Weathers pitched yesterday? Carl Weathers, rest in peace. Jesus, David. The Marlins were underdogs against the Brewers. The Marlins came back in the ninth, won it in the 10th, and we got plus money for that pick of the day. Hip, hip, hooray. That was a good win, especially for a team that's 20 under. They don't win that often. He's a good pitcher. You should check him out. Ace? I don't think so. Does he have a chance to be an ace? He does. Would I trade him right now? He's outperforming expectations. That's a callback to the start of the show. Tonight, we've got the Eastern Conference Finals starting between the Knicks and Celtics. It is awfully exciting that the Knicks are in their first Eastern Conference Finals. Coca hates when I do this. I'm telling you what I was ready to be previewing today, and the Knicks screwed it up with their injuries and the Pacers' historic shooting, and all I could do was say, Coca, we need a wager today. I want to take the under in Pacers field goal percentage. And Coca said, there's no market for that. You can do the over-under in points. I said, all right, what's the market for that? Coca said 105 according to DraftKings. And I said, that may be the best market of anything I've ever seen. 105 is not unreasonable for the Pacers to score. They will not shoot 67%. It is not a fait accompli that the Celtics win the series. They are prohibitive favorites. But if you're asking me to do a second wait to see, which I'm going to do right now, Coca, I'm doing a wait to see on each series. Tomorrow we'll preview the Western Conference series. The Celtics do not look like minus 1,000 favorites. They have moments of extreme laziness on defense, laziness on offense. They have moments where they look bored and disinterested, occasionally even uninterested. They have issues if Porzingis does not come back, and I assume he's going to come back at some point this series. That's been the thought. The Pacers have players who are good, not great. Halliburton is great. The other players are good, not great. Even Siakam I have is good, not great. Not championship. Now, a complimentary championship piece, Toronto, yes, but championship on their own at their core, I just don't see it. Whereas for the Celtics, I could easily tell you that a Holiday, Tatum, Brown triumvirate is a championship core. Porzingis in there. The Celtics are going to win the series. I hesitate to say it's going to be in X games because then you have to lay so much. So my wait to see, because I don't want to just get credit for saying the Celtics are going to win the series. So I believe the Celtics will win this series in 6 games. That is my wait to see. Celtics in 6. The Pacers will win twice because the Celtics just get a little bored. And it's not as though winning in 6 on Indiana's home floor, oh my God, no one wins on the road anymore. Why wouldn't you pick them in 5 or 7? No, Celtics in 6. But tonight's pick of the day is Celtics minus 10 over the Pacers. There's no way the Pacers will shoot the way they did in Game 7. It was historic. It's never been seen. It will not be seen again. If you can take under 50% from the field tonight, anywhere, hey, Fletch, do you got anybody? Ippei, you got somebody? Under 50% for the Pacers. Our official pick of the day is Celtics minus 10 over the Pacers. Then, of course, it's Patrick Corbin Day. Congratulations to all who celebrate. For those of you who do, Coca, you're telling me here I'm 3-3. Are you counting the 2 losses where we didn't have them as official picks of the day, but I took them as losses to the audience, even though I didn't put them in my record? So are we really then 3-5? Are the Nationals 5-3 and Corbin's 8 starts this year? Or the 8 since we started doing it? There's no way to check that on the fly like this. So I'm just going to tell you we're taking the Twins in the money line. We're going to lay the 185. We'll take some of the profit from Marlins win yesterday. We're taking the Twins, who have lost 69 in a row after winning that many in a row. We're still taking them over the Nats and Corbin because that's what we do. All right, Coca, play me some music.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. Check out the movie Half Baked. There's a character named Samson. Be my guest. It's been downgraded by the administration. It's legal in many states. So I feel totally at ease telling my entire audience to enjoy Half Baked while you are 68/69 baked, even if you're 32/69 baked. Just a little tiny bit under halfway, like one eye open and you're only eating half the bag of chips. That's Half Baked. There's a character named Samson. Come and ask me a question. Various places to find me. You know how to do it. Hi, David. Hi. Can you please explain the important details behind the issue where Fanatics is suing Marvin Harrison Jr.? I see a lot of information out there, but one of my favorite things about your show is your ability to cut through the nonsense and share what is really going on. I love the show. Thanks. Thank you. That question does not interest me. It was just the last sentence. I love the show. Thanks. What are we up to next? No, I'm just kidding. It's a great question. It's a great topic. Let me give you the background. There's something called licensing. Licensing is money that unions get paid by selling the name, image, and likeness of the players within the union to companies like card companies or apparel companies. And then the union gets paid all this money and then distributes it to people in the union and then keeps some of it for a strike fund. When you are a major league player, you are invited now, minor league player too, you're invited into the union, but you have to say yes. Marvin Harrison was invited into the NFLPA, And he said, no, I don't want to be in your union. I don't want to opt into any Fanatics deal. I don't want to do business with Fanatics. Fanatics, bless their soul, they're in the content business now. So that's another company I can't say anything bad about. I love you, Fanatics, and what you're doing. Keep it up. Anytime you want to pivot to nothing personal, LMK, it only guarantees that I won't talk about you. Not. You're right. I never mentioned Meadowlark or Skipper or Dan. Come on now. So here's the lawsuit. Fanatics, which, as you know, is a competitor of DraftKings, they got themselves in the sportsbook business. Fanatics, as you know, is an apparel business. They're likely running your team store right now. We were offered to have Fanatics run the Marlins team store. I said, no, thank you. We'll take the profit. We'll run it ourselves. We appreciate it, though. But they have successfully gotten into that market. They bought Topps. They're trying to get in every market. They want to be full service, and it's not just because people wear white on July 4th. For Marvin Harrison Jr. to say that he doesn't want to do business with Fanatics, totally fine. Do business with someone else. You don't have to sell your NIL. You don't have to opt in. It's like people opting into the video game. Don't have to do it. But then a lawsuit was filed, and Fanatics said, I'm suing you, Marvin. And people said, suing Marvin because he doesn't want to be a part of your company? That sounds like a loser. And then word came out from Fanatics, it's just a slight bit more legal than that. It's like most things, a contract case. You promised me you would do something. You even signed your name, and now you're not doing it, so I'm going to sue you. I didn't say I would do that. I said I'd be Meatloaf. I would do anything for you, but I won't do that. Well, we've got a deal. We were basically finished. We're basically agreed. We basically signed documents. Well, is there a contract or not, Your Honor? May I present to you the contract between Marvin Harrison and Fanatics? What do you say about that, Marvin? Great question. Let me ask my lawyer. Here's what I say. That's not my signature. That's always been a good one. I didn't read it. That's always been a good one. That's not what I was told I was signing for. Really doesn't work. When you agree on a binding term sheet and then you finalize it and then it's signed and it's been heavily negotiated, the court thinks you got yourself a contract. Fanatics is claiming that Harrison had a bright future. They wanted a big deal with him versus what they had. They had a smaller deal before. So then they made an agreement just recently, like a year ago, finalized it. But for whatever reason, Harrison said, not happy with that agreement. I'm going to go ahead and sell my stuff on a totally different website that I'm going to start myself, and I'm going to keep all the money. Forget giving any to you. I'm going to call it the official Harrison collection. All right, good idea. Except you don't own yourself. You got to be careful. You got to read the fine print when you sign stuff away. There's a lot of, how many documentaries have we all watched where we feel it's totally unfair what happened to George Michael, what happened to Billy Joel, what happened to these bands who say, I never get any money. Well, you signed a record deal, and if you read the record deal, it says that they are going to be your studio producer, and they're going to own your music from now until the end of time. Sign here, and we'll let you make your record. The smart people bet on themselves and say, screw you, I'll self-release. You have to think about that from a player standpoint, too. When you're approached to sell your name, image, and likeness, you better figure it out, because remember, it's children who are being approached. Harrison was what, in high school, college? These are kids, folks. Fanatics is used to signing up all of these kids, taking their rights. Good for them if they can get them. Agents do it all the time. Hey, Jerry Maguire was about fighting over who had who as an agent. The poaching is nonstop. Don't be one of those people who says, David, it's not fair that these kids have to deal with these adult issues. Well, cry me a river. When you're a kid and you can make money for somebody, including yourself, You're going to be exploited. If your parents can't protect you, I'm sorry. If your guardian can't protect you, I'm sorry. Are people interested in the money? You bet your bippy. I don't mean to be harsh, but it's the truth. When an agent walks into a house in the Dominican where there's no floor, and they say, I can get you $50,000 right now. Just sign here. And I'm not even talking about getting out of Cuba where you're trying to save your life. I'm talking about getting out of poverty. The poverty that exists not just on the islands, but here as well. I do have a thing about second-generation players. There's no doubt. I've talked about Tatis Jr. and Guerrero Jr. and Bichette and Biggio and Conine and all the players who have parents as athletes who are not nearly as desperate if their fathers were successful and there is family money. Desperation means you do things that you don't want to do once you don't feel desperate anymore, but it doesn't mean you didn't do them. Don't do anything with desperation as your cologne because you're going to regret it. David, it's easy for you to say, I wasn't always me. I was a total go-getter when I was 22, 25, during law school, after law school. I had no money at all, working to try to start a business. Was it tempting to sell out and take upfront cash? You're damn right, because running a baseball team, I did it too. I took upfront cash for TV deals, and it was stupid. It made our operating a team later in the future bad. Deferred contracts. It makes you feel good now, doesn't feel good later. You got to be so careful because you think Fanatics is in the wrong for suing Harrison? Of course not. Am I in the wrong for suing a sponsor who doesn't pay? Am I in the wrong for suing anyone who doesn't fulfill their obligation under a contract? No. So the question is, what's going to happen and how does it work? Well, there's something called specific performance where Harrison can end this right now and just say, fine, I'm a Fanatics guy. I'll stop selling on my own website. I will allow you to represent me and I'll take the cut that I had previously negotiated. 2, let's not bring this to arbitration. Let's not have any sort of trial. Why don't we settle this and let's figure out a new way to split money? Fanatics has a right to say yes or no to that, depending on the strength of their case, depending on what the contract looks like that they both signed. Maybe Harrison on principle alone says, I am never going with you, Fanatics, ever. I wouldn't be caught dropping passes with you, ever. Okay, then we're just going to continue. Fanatics goes to the next family, the next player, the next day, the next moment. Oh, a lot of impact. Players are going to be very reticent to do business with Fanatics. Would you give me a small break? These lawsuits happen all the time. It is totally normal. It doesn't inform anybody's decision about what they are going to do going forward when they are making decisions in their own interest or what they think is in their own interest. So here's a piece of advice to all of you. If you've got talented children or you're talented yourself, and someone comes a knocking and convinces you to do something by putting a piece of paper in front of you, my advice to you, don't sign it. Get representation, because if someone's willing to pay you to do something, that means that you do something that someone else will pay for also, which means you'll be able to get someone to represent you, to handle the business affairs. And no matter how bad it seems now, it's way worse if you make it. And then you will have signed a deal that was not fair or that you weren't comfortable with. Of course, you may sign a deal, get upfront money, be a part of a licensing NIL deal, and never make it ever. And that's the only money you make. So I'm not asking you to turn your back on that. I'm asking you to do some self-evaluation, some projection. Give me the agent or the executive or the CEO who can look at someone with talent and say they're going to be way better tomorrow than they are today. Does that remind you of the start of the show? It should, because it's just business. This is nothing personal.